All right, picture this scenario. It's 2:00 p.m. on a Thursday. You're sitting in the back of a conference room, or maybe, you're on a Zoom call, camera off, just staring at that grid of faces.
A scene that is probably a little too familiar for a lot of us.
Yeah, the air conditioning is humming, the lighting is that awful, headache-inducing fluorescent kind, and you are staring at a screen, at these slides, strategy slides.
Okay.
But here's the twist. You know every single pixel on those slides. I mean, you didn't just read them, you birthed them. You spent the last 3 nights building the model, mapping out every single dependency, creating the framework that is projected to save the company 6 figures this year. You're exhausted, you're overcaffeinated, and you are watching your manager present your work.
And let me guess the punchline. Your name isn't on the title slide.
It is nowhere. You are completely invisible. The manager is getting the nods, the great job from the director.
The impressed murmurs from the VP.
Exactly. And you are just there, waiting, hoping that maybe, I don't know, telepathically someone notices you were the architect.
That is such a visceral, painful place to be. It's the feeling of your own brilliance being used as fuel to light up someone else's career while you're just, stuck in the shadows.
It is. And that is the story of Grace, a character we're going to spend a lot of time with today. But Grace isn't just a fictional character. She is the focal point of today's deep dive into the work of Tanya E. Hood, specifically looking at insights from her Red Alert Diaries.
And Tanya E. Hood uses Grace to illustrate a very specific, and I'd say an epidemic struggle in the modern workplace. It's about how to stop getting overlooked, how to stop hiding your competence, and how to finally get the credit you actually deserve.
So if you have ever felt like the workhorse behind the show pony, this deep dive is for you. We're analyzing Tanya E. Hood's framework to take you from invisible to indispensable.
And we have 3 very specific tactical strategies to break down.
Yes, not just be more confident.
No, what I really appreciate about this material is that it moves past that generic advice of just speak up more. That's useless for someone who is structurally overlooked. This digs into the psychology of why we hide and gives a real roadmap for getting out.
So let's unpack the core concept first. Tanya E. Hood identifies this specific personality type she calls the developer soul. When I first read that description, I felt seen, but I also felt a little called out.
I think a lot of people will.
So what exactly does she mean by the developer soul?
It's a really interesting archetype. The developer soul refers to the builders. These are the people who naturally gravitate toward the process, the strategy, the logistics.
Okay.
They aren't the ones who want to stand on the stage and wave to the crowd. They're the ones who want to make sure the stage doesn't collapse.
Right. They aren't cutting the ribbon. They poured the concrete for the bridge.
Precisely. They make sure the trains run on time, but they do it in the dark. The key characteristic here is that they do it so seamlessly that other people don't even realize a problem was solved.
It just looks like magic.
It looks like magic. But for the developer soul, it's just Tuesday.
That's the double-edged sword, though, isn't it? If you make it look too easy, people just assume it is easy. They don't see the friction you removed.
That is part of it. But Tanya E. Hood points out a much more insidious trap. It's not just that others don't see the work. It's that the developer soul lies to themselves about it.
How so?
They tell themselves things like, I'm content being in the background. I don't need the spotlight. I'm fine just doing the work.
That is the humble trap. I'm just a team player. I don't need the glory.
Right. But Tanya E. Hood argues that often that's not humility. It's hiding. It is a defense mechanism. You're telling yourself you're content. Deep down, when you see someone else presenting your strategy and getting the bonus, it hurts. You feel erased.
And that gap between what you say, I'm fine, and what you feel, I'm invisible, that's where resentment grows.
And burnout begins, yeah.
It's easier to say, I don't want the credit, than to risk asking for it and, being told no. So if we accept that we might be developer souls, the first step isn't to storm into the boss's office, it's internal. This brings us to Tanya E. Hood's first strategy, radical honesty.
Yes. And specifically, the tool she prescribes is the stop lying list.
I love this concept. It sounds aggressive, but it's actually really introspective.
It is. And we need to be clear. Tanya E. Hood isn't saying you're a liar in like a malicious sense. She's saying you are lying to yourself about your own needs and your own value. You're shrinking to make other people feel comfortable.
Okay, so how do we execute this? Is this just a mental checklist, or are we actually writing this down?
Oh, you have to write it down. The exercise is to identify 3 specific places in your life,
Yeah.
work, relationships, personal goals, where you are not showing up fully.
Where you're pretending to be okay with less than you deserve.
Exactly.
That is actually a little scary to write down, because once it's on paper, you can't unsee it. You can't just pretend it's a bad mood.
That's the entire point. It forces you to confront the reality. Maybe it's at work, where you're managing a massive project but letting a coworker take the project lead title because you don't want the conflict.
Yeah. Or maybe it's in a relationship where you're always the one compromising on where to go for dinner or what to do for the holidays.
Or a personal goal.
Like what?
Well, you might tell yourself, I'm too busy to learn that new coding language, when really, the truth is you're just afraid you won't be good at it. I'm too busy is often code for I am scared. The stop lying list drags those excuses into the light.
And the action item Tanya E. Hood gives here is crucial because I think developer souls tend to be perfectionists. We might look at that list and try to fix everything at once.
Which is just a recipe for failure. She advises you to circle just one item. You don't have to fix your entire life overnight. Just circle one item on that list to face this week.
It takes it from that abstract feeling of dissatisfaction, that, I hate my job feeling, to a concrete mission. This week, I'm going to stop lying about being okay with doing the admin work for the whole team.
Right. It might mean setting a boundary. It might mean having a difficult conversation. It's about maximizing your own truth in one specific area.
I think that's so vital because the developer soul is often so busy fixing everyone else's problems. They treat their own reality like a low-priority ticket. So once we've stopped lying to ourselves, what's the next move? We can't just stay in our heads.
No, you have to move into action. But again, Tanya E. Hood is very smart about how she frames this. She knows that for someone who has been hiding, a massive gesture feels, well, impossible. So strategy number 2 is one small visible step.
I love this because I think we often feel like if we want to change our reputation, we need some kind of movie makeover montage.
Right.
We need to kick down the door, wear a new suit, and demand a promotion.
And that is completely paralyzing. If you think you have to overhaul your entire personality to be successful, you'll do nothing. You'll just retreat further. Tanya E. Hood says resilience and visibility aren't built in those dramatic Hollywood comebacks. They're built in small, manageable moments.
So what's the tactical move here? What does one small visible step actually look like?
She calls it the 72-hour challenge. Within the next 72 hours, you need to offer a solution before being asked.
Oh, I like that distinction. Before being asked. Stop waiting for permission.
That is the core of it. There's this psychological barrier where developer souls feel they need authorization to speak. They build the whole strategy, they know the answer, they see the cliff the company's about to drive off.
But they wait for someone with a fancy title to ask them, hey, what do you think?
It's like you're waiting to be invited to your own party. You built the house, but you're knocking on the front door.
That's a great way to put it.
And Tanya E. Hood says, stop that. You know the answer. You know how the work gets done because you are the one doing it. So the challenge is to just speak up once in the next meeting or send that one email with a proposal.
It sounds simple, but for someone who has spent years in receive mode, switching to broadcast mode is risky. Going back to Grace, when she eventually speaks up, Tanya E. Hood describes her heart just pounding. She can hear it in her ears.
And that is a physiological reality we have to acknowledge. When you break a pattern of silence, your body reacts like you're in physical danger. It feels threatening. But the one small visible step is about proving to yourself that you can survive that feeling.
It's not about leading the keynote.
No, just interject with one solution, once.
It's like exposure therapy for your career. You survive the first comment, you realize you didn't die, and it gets easier to make the second one.
Exactly. You're building a muscle.
Okay, so we're being honest with ourselves. We're taking one visible step. Now we move to strategy number 3, which I think is the most practical nuts and bolts tool for anyone who hates performance reviews. It's the resilience record.
This is absolutely essential for the developer soul. The problem, as we've said, is that because the work comes so naturally to you, the logistics, the planning, the risk mitigation, you just dismiss it. You think, oh, I just organized the files.
It was nothing. Anyone could have done it.
They didn't. You did. And often anyone couldn't have done it, certainly not with your level of nuance. Tanya E. Hood argues that you need to document these moments. She calls them microcosm moments. You need to write down your accomplishments line by line.
Okay, talk to me about the line-by-line part. Why is that granular detail so important? Why can't I just write, managed Q3 project?
Because managed Q3 project is vague. It doesn't capture the value you created. It sounds administrative. I tracked the numbers, supported the framework, mitigated the risks, and ensured the deadline was met despite X, Y, and Z obstacles. That is a record of value. That shows how you think.
So it's the difference between saying, I cooked dinner, and saying, I sourced the ingredients, prepped the station, managed the timing of 4 different dishes at once, and plated it for service.
Exactly. One sounds like a chore, the other sounds like a skill. And Tanya E. Hood points out this resilience record serves 2 distinct purposes. First, the professional one. When you walk into that review asking for a raise, you aren't speaking in generalities. You're not saying, I feel like I worked hard.
Which is so subjective and easy to dismiss.
Right. Instead, you have a list. Here's what I built. Here's the framework I supported. Here's the money I saved. It makes the invisible visible. It forces management to look at the data.
And what's the second purpose?
The second is personal. It is irrefutable evidence of your own power. When you have a bad day, or when you feel small, or when imposter syndrome kicks in and tells you you're a fraud, you look at that resilience record. You see proof that you are capable and effective. It stops you from gaslighting yourself into thinking you haven't done anything.
That is so huge. We forget so fast. I can barely remember what I did last Tuesday, let alone the crisis I solved 3 months ago.
And if you don't remember, you certainly can't expect your manager to remember. They're busy with their own stop lying list. You have to be the historian of your own excellence.
The historian of your own excellence. I love that. We have to archive our own wins. Now, before we get back to the climax of Grace's story, Tanya E. Hood mentions a framework for dealing with people during this whole reset. Because when you start changing, when you start speaking up, people react. She calls this the 3 C's.
Yes, this is a quick but vital check-in for your relationships as you start shifting the dynamic. The 3 C's are clarification, connection, and closure.
Okay, let's run through them. Clarification.
This is about clearing the air. As you start taking credit, you might need to say, hey, just to clarify, I actually did the heavy lifting on that slide deck. It's correcting the record without being hostile.
Connection.
This is looking at your network. Does a bond need strengthening? Maybe you've been hiding from a mentor because you felt unworthy. Or maybe you need to connect with other developer souls so you don't feel so isolated.
And the big one, closure.
This is the hard one. Is it time to move on? Sometimes stopping the lying means admitting a professional relationship is a dead end. If you show your value and they still refuse to see it, closure might mean updating your LinkedIn and finding a place that values builders.
It's a good filter to run your interactions through. Okay, let's go back to the conference room. Let's go back to Grace. She's presumably done her stop lying list. She knows she's not okay with being ignored. She's ready for her one small visible step.
The moment of truth. She's in the meeting. Her manager's gliding past her accomplishments again. The slides are up. And Grace decides to intervene.
Tanya E. Hood describes this so vividly. The silence in the room.
The silence is the scariest part. We're socially conditioned to interpret silence as disapproval or failure. But Grace pushes through that barrier. And notice how she speaks up. She doesn't say, hey, that's mine. That's not fair.
Right. She doesn't throw a tantrum. She doesn't make it about her ego.
She speaks the language of the developer soul. She walks them through the logic. She says, actually, regarding this slide, when I built this framework, the key risk factor I identified was X. She explains the mechanics. She details the risk assessment. She demonstrates that she is the one who understands the engine of the strategy.
She showed her work. She made it impossible to deny she was the architect. And what happened?
The outcome was immediate. The director, the person with the real power, turned to the manager and said, if she built that model, she needs to be in the room when we make decisions about it.
Boom. Instant validation. But not just from the director.
No, and this is the part that really struck me. A coworker caught up with her later and asked, I didn't know you had all that in you. Where have you been hiding?
And that's the kicker. She wasn't hiding in a cave. She was sitting right there in the ergonomic chair. But she was hiding her voice.
Yeah, Grace's realization was that she wasn't hiding from the work. She had stopped lying to herself about staying small. She realized that by staying silent, she was complicit in her own erasure.
That is a heavy realization, but it's also so liberating. It means you aren't just a victim of the system. You're a participant who can change the rules of engagement.
You do have the power. It's not about waiting for the world to change. It's about changing how you present yourself to the world.
Now, we're reaching the part of the deep dive where Tanya E. Hood takes us. Well, deeper. She calls this the next level note. And she brings in a story that seems totally different at first, but it fits perfectly. It's the story of Nehemiah.
This is where we zoom out from the corporate conference room to the human condition. Tanya E. Hood references Nehemiah, a figure from her favorite book, who was a cupbearer. Now, in ancient times, a cupbearer was essentially a high-end server.
So not a general, not a king, not a CEO, he was support staff.
Exactly. He was the ultimate developer soul. But he was charged with this massive task, rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem to protect his people. Tanya E. Hood highlights that he inspected the damages in the dark. He dealt with opposition. He made plans when no one was watching.
Wow.
The leaders didn't even know the extent of the problem, but Nehemiah was there, fixing it brick by brick.
I love that image of inspecting damages in the dark. It feels like such a metaphor for the self-work we've been discussing.
That is the lesson Tanya E. Hood draws here. This isn't just about rebuilding a career. It's about rebuilding the self. Just like Nehemiah, we have to inspect our own damages. We have to look at the parts of our character or confidence that we allowed to crumble or get lost because we were too busy serving others.
The parts we let get lost while we were busy making everyone else look good, we let our own walls crumble.
Precisely. The next level note is a call to reconstruct your identity. You are not just the helper. You are not just the cupbearer. You are the builder. You're the one who ensures safety and structure, and that role deserves honor. But first, you have to honor it yourself.
It really elevates the whole conversation, doesn't it? It's not just about getting a raise, it's about reclaiming your territory. It's about saying, I built this wall and I stand by it.
And doing it with excellence. Nehemiah didn't do a sloppy job, he built a wall that stood. When you build your resilience record, when you make your stop lying list, you are laying bricks for a version of yourself that cannot be overlooked.
Man, that is good stuff. So let's bring this all home for the listener who is sitting in their car or at their desk, maybe feeling a little bit like Grace right now. They know they have the answers, but they're afraid to speak up. What are the big takeaways?
If we distill Tanya E. Hood's wisdom, we have 3 clear assignments. Number 1, create that stop lying list. Be radically honest about where you are shrinking and pretending to be okay. And pick one thing to fix.
Just one.
Number 2, take one visible step. That 72-hour challenge. Offer a solution before you are asked. Break the seal on your silence. And number 3, build your resilience record. Document your value, line by line. Be the historian of your own excellence.
And remember the concept of the developer soul. If you're the one building the strategy, you're the one who knows how it works. You don't need permission to speak on what you built.
That's the key. Waiting for permission is a strategy for staying invisible. If you want to move from the background to the boardroom or wherever your version of success is, you have to authorize yourself. You have to sign your own permission slip.
So here is our final thought for you to chew on today. We talked about the 72-hour challenge, but let's make it even more immediate.
Think about your work right now. Not the work you're assigned, but the problems you see. If you stopped waiting for permission today, this afternoon, what is the one solution you already know the answer to that you could implement right now?
You know what it is. It's probably been annoying you for weeks that nobody else sees it. You've probably complained about it to your spouse or your dog.
Trust your gut. Trust your expertise. And just say it out loud.
Don't let the silence in the room scare you. It just means they're listening. Thanks for diving in with us today.
It's been a pleasure. Go build something great.
See you next time on The Deep Dive.